Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
So I wanted to talk about an article you brought up, Greg, in one of the newsletters earlier this week around, I think it was called the AIM Group, a consulting firm, did this big analysis of Craigslist revenue over the last, I think it was 15 or 20 years. And the revenues for Craigslist are off 50% from their peak in 2018 at just over $1 billion. This year they were, or this past year they were at 550 million, something like that. And it's, as you highlighted, Greg, Craig Newmark is not in business to make money. He's in business to kind of do his thing, and the company is in business to do their thing. And they're sort of one of the few sort of holdovers from the, I don't even know if you could call it a Web 1.0 aesthetic, but it's just,
pre 1.0
aesthetic, and they're sort of lovingly, curmudgeonly in their antipathy towards good user experience. And but nonetheless, they've survived. They've built this big audience that this report suggests may be not what it once was. Strikes me that potentially Google is no longer rewarding Craigslist with top search positions as better user experiences and better funded companies in some of the verticals where Craigslist plays, whether it's real estate with sites like Zillow and Redfin, or classified ads for services like Thumbtack, potentially even Yelp. It just strikes me that Craigslist has not, sort of evolved in the same way that a lot of their competitors have. And I think that one of the real opportunities, I think most of us, at least I don't know about you guys, but in my generation, we basically, if we needed to find an apartment, Craigslist was the default. And housing, I think, is a real, probably still a very strong category for them. I think it's a huge opportunity for NextDoor, which you've talked about many times, Greg, in previous Near Memos, to step into this classifieds void that this lack of evolved Craigslist has sort of created. The problem is, and I wonder if NextDoor is going to see this as a real opportunity, that the problem is you have to have an address in the neighborhood that you're joining in NextDoor. And it strikes me that the real opportunity for housing is people trying to move into a neighborhood. So I wonder if NextDoor might evolve, to some sort of guest zip code plan or something like that to take advantage of this major opportunity, particularly around housing classifieds as Craigslist sort of fades into the sunset.
So just a quick question though of sort of logic of this research. It's about income, and Craigslist only charges in a very limited number of categories. Do we know that traffic is
jobs and real estate, I think, are the two categories where they make most of their money?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Which is why it's so shocking that they were making $1 billion in 2018. Right. That number is.
But does this correlate with traffic declines in other categories? My kids need a used bicycle or whatever, or they need to sell something. Craigslist is still a common, and apartments still are a very common area for them to pursue in Buffalo.
Well, some of this is clearly the coronavirus, right? The pandemic. But so we'll have to see what happens. But I think over time, Craigslist has seen some erosion, obviously, of its audience.
But if anything, Greg, the pandemic saw a lot more people switching jobs and has seen a lot of people moving out of cities and into more rural areas. I don't think the pandemic should have affected the two categories that Craigslist makes most of its money in.
True. Well, so Peter Zollman is the guy that runs AIM Group, somebody that I knew and have known, but not recently talked to. But he's been following this for quite a long time, and classifieds as their area of specialty. And he points out that Facebook Marketplace is the chief competitor, according to them. I do agree that this is one of the big opportunities for NextDoor, maybe more than advertising. And I do think that I agree with what you said, that NextDoor is going to expand geographically. They're going to enlarge the circles for people because they have to create more reach. And so can they do it? Will they do it? Unclear, but I think that it's a major opportunity for them.
I think the other advantage that NextDoor has going for it is that there's not nearly the same degree of anonymity that potential landlords have to deal with on Craigslist. You don't really know, who's replying to a given post or what, or sellers or whatever.
Right. The crime psychotic killer.
Right, exactly.
Problem.
At least on NextDoor, there's a little bit of a sense of, okay, they've been on NextDoor X number of years. They've commented on 52 posts. They have whatever.
It's the psychotic neighbor problem.
Right.
Yes, which is a very real problem, as we know.
But there is a little bit more sort of trust factor that NextDoor has built up. I think even potentially relative to Facebook, that puts it in a better position in terms of the sort of cognitive hurdle that you have to jump through to actually put something on Craigslist. So.
Yeah, I mean, think about I don't know what the NextDoor put out I don't think it put out the pre-IPO S1. I don't think they released one of those. Maybe I think there was a deck that circulated that was talking about their revenues and so on and so forth. But I think they've got something just north of 100 million in revenue. If that's from memory, so it may be inaccurate. But Craigslist shows you in if you just monetize two categories with enough scale, what the revenue opportunity is. And this to me seems to be a stronger opportunity than SMB advertising. I mean, I think you could sell enhanced profiles and tools and services to SMBs. I think it's going to be a harder sell to get them into ads a la Google. And I think classifieds is a much safer bet for NextDoor. We'll see if they can do it. I don't think there was any. Somebody was telling me about it. I haven't seen the slides, but I don't think there was any discussion of classifieds as a monetization scenario in that investor deck. But I didn't see it directly.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.